Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to get back to Malaysian Airlines MH370. I know there's been a lot of talk of MH17, which it now appears was shot down by a military jet over the Ukraine, although that's still an ongoing investigation. I want to get back to Malaysian Flight 370. I previously did this video in March 2014 talking about what really happened to Malaysian Airlines MH370. Now we know that there have been no further developments and it's still a mystery as to what has happened to this plane. I then did a follow-up video called What Happened to Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 Latest Update. But what I want to talk about today is an interesting article that I've just recently come across, which is entitled Aeroplanes Could Be Taken Over Through In-Flight Entertainment Systems, Hacker Claims. This was published on August the 4th, 2014, and I'm just going to work through this article. It says, a security researcher says that ships, aircraft and industrial facilities are all at risk of being compromised, perhaps with catastrophic results, and intends to explain how at a major hacker conference this week. Ruben Santamarta, a 32-year-old consultant for cybersecurity firm IQ Active, is expected to present a talk titled Satcom Terminals, Hacking by Air, Sea and Land on Thursday at the annual Black Hat Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. And during it he plans to demonstrate how satellite communications systems used by the likes of commercial airliners and oil rigs alike can be infiltrated by malicious actors and altered to let unauthorized attackers take control. He says, "We live in a world where data is constantly flowing. It is clear that those who control communications traffic have a distinct advantage. The ability to disrupt, inspect, modify or reroute traffic provides an invaluable opportunity to carry out attacks." According to an abstract of the talk made public by Santamarta during Thursday's talk, he'll explain how devices sold by the world's leading SATCOM vendors contain substantial security flaws. After analyzing these products, IQ Active said they determined that 100% of the devices could be abused by an array of attack vectors. These devices are wide open. The goal of this talk is to help change that situation, Santamarta told Reuters for a report published on Monday this week. Santamarta first hinted at his findings in a white paper published earlier this year entitled A Wake-Up Call for Satcom Security, in which he wrote that multiple high-risk vulnerabilities were uncovered in popular SATCOM technologies manufactured and marketed by Harris, Hughes, Cobham, Thuraya, JRC and Iridium. These vulnerabilities, he wrote, could let hackers take control of SATCOM terminals by gaining access through backdoors or relying on hard-coded credentials that allow anyone with the right login to gain administrative access over a device using a master password. In other instances, the SATCOM devices were alleged to use undocumented or insecure protocols, and in others weak encryption algorithms. These vulnerabilities have the potential to allow a malicious actor to intercept, manipulate or block communications, and in some cases to remotely take control of the physical device, the paper acknowledged. In certain cases, no user interaction is required to exploit the vulnerability. Just sending a simple SMS or specially crafted message from one ship to another ship can do it, reads a description on the Black Hat website. Jim Finkel, a reporter for Reuters, wrote that the exploits may allow Santamarta or anyone else with the right information to hack the satellite communications used on passenger jets by gaining access through in-flight services provided to civilian passengers. In theory, a hacker could use a plane's onboard Wi-Fi signal or in-flight entertainment system to hack into its avionics equipment, potentially disrupting or modifying satellite communications, which could interfere with the craft's navigation and safety systems, Finkel wrote. One system at risk, according to the white paper, are Harris BGAN terminals commonly used by the military to provide enhanced tactical radio network capabilities in battlefield situations, and is common with the forces of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. Now, the executive summary on this white paper says, satellite communications, SATCOM, play a vital role in the global telecommunications system. IQ Active evaluated the security posture of the most widely deployed Inmarsat and Iridium SATCOM terminals. IQ Active found that malicious actors could abuse all the devices within the scope of this study. The vulnerabilities included what would appear to be backdoors, hard-coded credentials, undocumented and/or insecure protocols, and weak encryption algorithms. In addition to design flaws, IQ Active also uncovered a number of features in the devices that clearly pose security risks. The findings of IQ Active's research should serve as an initial wake-up call for both the vendors and users of the current generation of SATCOM technology. Now, one of my previous videos dealt with the speculation that the American military, who are based on this remote island at Diego Garcia, had diverted flight MH17 from Malaysia to the island. Now, let me just remind you what is on that base. There are heavy bombers on that base, a very big airfield, as you can see here. The whole island is in fact now a military base. There are bombers, again, these are the stealth bombers. There we have an aircraft carrier, and here we can see these B-2 bombers, and these are the shelters that have been constructed at Diego Garcia as well for some of these stealth bombers. There are submarines on this base, and of course, again, we can see that it's very strategic because it covers a very large area, and the island is located right here in the middle of the Indian Ocean. So very, very strategically located. What is also very interesting is I came across this video, which I'm going to just show you in a minute.
Hey guys, Dabu7. I want to report here some more suspicious activity taking place at Diego Garcia. Now, people have been staying on top of the shipments going in and out, cargo shipments, even trying to track flights. Now, in doing so, coming across a huge red flag here at Red Flag News, you can see that the Pentagon is blocking all leave to Diego Garcia. They have shut all of this down here recently, and until they come back out and they state that it's open, it's shut down. Now you can go over to the Facebook page like I just showed you, and you can see this, and you can go to the AMC travel page, and basically what this states is that Space A travel for active duty members. Active duty members may travel Space A in Category 3 along with their dependents while on leave. The active duty sponsor must be in a valid leave status and within the dates of an approved leave form. It is in the member's responsibility to ensure documentation presented to the AMC passenger service agents, and it has to be accurate. Now, they also give a reminder here. Check this out. Conditions to travel. There is no guaranteed space for any traveler. The Department of Defense is not obligated to continue an individual's travel or return him or her to their point of origin or any other point. Now, travelers should have sufficient personal funds to pay for commercial transportation to return to the residence. Now, how are you going to do that when they don't even let anything private come into the region? Every now and then they'll let a yacht sail through the waters, passing through, but that's it. Highly suspect, but just another huge red flag, and I want it to be known that from at this point until they state otherwise, they have canceled all military leave to Diego Garcia.
Now, on this website, it says that the MH370 Boeing 777 had advanced emergency locator equipment which was emitting signals which should have facilitated its location, obviously being picked up by satellite. It was subsequently established that the MH370 flight had gone southbound towards the Indian Ocean. Located in the Indian Ocean is the U.S. Diego Garcia Military and Intelligence Base, described by defense observers as the best-kept secret in the Navy, which has a gamut of advanced observation and detection equipment which should have facilitated the search for the Malaysian Airlines plane. But instead, the US military preferred to keep quiet on the subject, as outlined by a carefully documented article by Matthias Chang. According to Reuters on the 28th of March 2014, this was a quote by Matthias Chang. It says, "Ultimately, the only country with the technical resources to recover the plane, or at least its black box recorder, which could lie in water several miles deep, may be the United States. Its deep-sea vehicles ultimately hauled up the wreckage of Air France 447 after its 2009 crash into a remote region of the South Atlantic. The US has a state-of-the-art spy satellite system with very precise capabilities of monitoring the Earth's surface, including moving objects. These technologies are part of the United States space surveillance network. The Diego Garcia base is only one of a handful of locations equipped with ground-based electro-optical deep space surveillance system for tracking objects in deep space. Given the levels of sophistication of these observation technologies, it is highly unlikely that the MH370 flight could have traveled unnoticed over a large span of the Indian Ocean." Now, in this article, written by Matthias Chang on July the 20th, 2014, it's headed, "Disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight MH370, the trillion-dollar question of the US and its intelligence services." Its subtitle is, "Malaysian media should pose critical questions to the US and its intelligence services and not to the Malaysian government." This article by distinguished Malaysian lawyer and author Matthias Chang was first published on GR on March 29, 2014. Let me state from the outset that I totally agree with the press statements by Malaysia's Defence Minister and Acting Transport Minister that we have conducted ourselves fairly and responsibly, and history will judge us for that. Now, I want to move further down this article, which says, "It is my hope that following the publication of this article, Malaysian mass media will focus on questioning the integrity of the US's assistance to Malaysia in the first 3 weeks of the SAR mission, notwithstanding its recent offer of more assistance. I take comfort that my reservations about the US and its intelligence services, as well as other intelligence services closely linked to the US, especially British Secret Service, have been more than vindicated by Reuters in its news report on 28 March entitled Geopolitical Games Handicap Hunt for Flight MH370. The search for Flight MH370, the Malaysian Airlines jetliner that vanished over the South China Sea on March 8th, has involved more than 24 countries and 60 aircraft and ships, but has been bedeviled by regional rivalries. With the United States playing a relatively muted role in the sort of exercise that until recently it would have dominated, experts and officials say there was no real central coordination until the search for the plane was confined to the southern Indian Ocean when Australia largely took charge. Part of the problem is that Asia has no NATO-style regional defense structure, though several countries have formed alliances with the United States. Commonwealth members Malaysia, Singapore, New Zealand and Australia also have an arrangement with Britain to discuss defence matters in times of crisis. As mystery deepened over the fate of the Boeing 777 and its 239 passengers and crew, most of them Chinese, it became clear that highly classified military technology might hold the key. But the investigation became deadlocked over the reluctance of others to share sensitive data, a reticence that appeared to harden as the search area widened. This is turning into a spy novel, said an envoy from a Southeast Asian country, noting it was turning attention to areas and techniques few countries liked to publicly discuss. Ultimately, the only country with the technical resources to recover the plane, or at least its black box recorder, which could lie in water several miles deep, may be the United States. Its deep-sea vehicles ultimately hauled up the wreckage of Air France 447 after its 2009 crash into a remote region of the South Atlantic. Just moving on further down this article, it says, the United States has taken advantage of the search for the missing Malaysian Airlines flight to test the capabilities of China's satellites and judge the threat of Chinese missiles against its aircraft carriers. Eric Shi, chief reporter at Chinese language military news monthly Defense International, said, "The US has more and better satellites, but has not taken part in the search for flight MH370, which disappeared about an hour into its flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing in the early hours of March 8th with 239 people on board." She claimed that the US held back because it wanted to see what information Chinese satellites would provide. So basically Reuters has let the genie out of the bottle, is what this article is saying. This is the truth behind why America held back and refused to get involved. Malaysia's Minister of Transport gave hints that his hands were tied by intelligence protocols and the refusal by relevant foreign intelligence services and diplomatic reluctance. Moving further on down the article, it says, Malaysia is but a victim of this tragedy, whose plane MH370 was used for a hidden agenda for which only time will reveal. At the outset of the SAR mission, all concerned stated categorically that every scenario, no matter how unlikely, would be examined critically with no stones left unturned. Terrorist hijacking, suicide mission, technical failures, inadequate security, criminal actions of the pilot or the co-pilot, etc. Given the above premise, families of the passengers and the crew of MH370 have every right to ask the following questions of the US and other countries that have sophisticated technologies to track and monitor airplanes and ships in all circumstances. Such questions should not be shot down by those who have a hidden agenda that such queries amount to conspiracy theories. Far from being conspiracy theories, we assert that the questions tabled below and the rationale for asking them are well-founded and must be addressed by the relevant parties, failing which an inference ought to be drawn that they are complicit in the disappearance of MH370. So I'm going to go through these questions briefly. Number 1. Was the plane ordered to turn back? And if so, who gave the order? Number 2. Was the plane turned back manually or by remote control? Number 3. If by remote control, which country or countries have the technologies to execute such an operation? Number 4. Was MH370 weaponized before its flight to Beijing? Number 5. If so, what are the likely methods for such a mission? Biological weapons, dirty bombs, etc.? Number 6. Was Beijing or China the target, and if so, why? Number 8. The time sequence of countries identifying the alleged MH370 debris in the Indian Ocean was first made by Australia, followed by France, Thailand, Japan, and Britain via Inmarsat. Why did the US not offer any satellite intelligence until today? Number 9. Prior to the switch of focus to the Indian Ocean, was the SAR mission in the South China Seas used as a cover for the deployment of undersea equipment to track and monitor naval capabilities of other nations' navies competing for ownership of disputed territorial waters? Reuters seems to have suggested such an outcome. Number 10. Why has there been no focus, especially by foreign mass media, on the intelligence and surveillance capabilities of Diego Garcia, the strategic naval and airbase of the US? Number 11. Why no questions were asked whether the flight path of MH370, if as alleged it crashed in the Indian Ocean, was within the geographical parameters of the intelligence capabilities of Diego Garcia? Why were no planes deployed from Diego Garcia to intercept the so-called unidentified plane, which would obviously pose a threat to the Diego Garcia military base? They're referring, of course, to MH370. Number 12. The outdated capabilities of the Hexagon's satellite system deployed by the US in the 1970s has a ground resolution of 0.6 meters. What's more, the present and latest technologies boast the ability to identify objects much smaller in size. Why have such satellites not provided any images of the alleged debris in the Indian Ocean? Were they deliberately withheld? Number 13. On April the 6th, 2012, the US launched a mission dubbed NROL-25, consisting of a spy satellite from the Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. The NROL-25 satellite was likely rigged with synthetic aperture radar, a system capable of observing targets around the globe in daylight and darkness, able to penetrate clouds and identify underground structures such as military bunkers. Though the true capabilities of the satellites are not publicly known due to their top-secret classification, some analysts have claimed that the technology allows the authorities to zoom in on items as small as a human fist from hundreds of miles away. How is it then that no imagery of MH370 debris was forwarded to Malaysia, as this capability is not classified, though other technologies might well remain classified? Number 14. Could it be that the above capabilities then were not as touted? 15. However, in December 2013, the USA Atlas V rocket was launched carrying the spy satellite NROL-39 for the National Reconnaissance Office, an intelligence agency which is often overshadowed by the notorious National Security Agency NSA. Only it scoops data via spy satellites in outer space. The NROL-39 emblem is represented by the octopus, a versatile, adaptive, and highly intelligent creature. Emblematically, enemies of the United States can be reached no matter where they choose to hide. The emblem boldly states, "Nothing is beyond our reach." This virtually means that the tentacles of America's world octopus are spreading across the globe to coil around everything within their grasp. Yet, the US, with such capabilities, remains silent. Why? It cannot be said that it is not within the realm of probabilities that the US may not want the plane MH370 to be recovered if rogue intelligence operators were responsible for the disappearance of MH370. If the above questions have been posed to the US and other intelligence agencies, and answers are not forthcoming, I take the view that the Malaysian government ought to declare publicly that our national sovereignty and security have been jeopardized by the disappearance of MH370, and that the relevant intelligence agencies have been tacitly complicit in the disappearance of MH370. By coming out openly to explain the predicament faced by our country, Malaysia may prevent a hostile act against a third country. I therefore call upon Malaysia mass media to be courageous and initiate such queries as only the US and other intelligent agencies can give definite answers to these 15 questions. It is futile to demand answers from Malaysia, as we are not in any position to supply the information, as we do not have the capabilities of the global and regional military powers. So I'm going to stop there, but I want to say that I do agree with this gentleman's comments. I do believe that the disappearance of flight MH370 was connected to the American military. I do believe that Diego Garcia had some connection with the disappearance of this plane. It is highly suspicious that Diego Garcia was so quiet, and that with all the capabilities that they have, they supposedly have no idea what happened to this aeroplane, and that they provided no information from their satellites that are spread out all over the world. So I don't want us to forget about flight MH370, because I think it poses some very disturbing questions. And my other speculation on this point is that the disappearance of MH370 and flight MH17 that were shot down, in my mind, over the Ukraine, are possibly practice runs for something more sinister and much darker in the future.